Playwright and creator Terrell recently found himself at the center of controversy surrounding his production, Harriet Tubman, Love Slave.
So to you, I'm your slave for love, sent from above. I'm your slave for love.
Today's conversation is one that has sparked strong emotions, difficult questions, and divided opinions across social media and beyond.
So tell us some of the initial inspiration behind this play.
My cousin sent me a viral TikTok trend that was going around that was dispelling Black historical figures. And this one was about Harriet Tubman not being real. And that got me thinking.
Yeah, kids. So what do you think about Harriet Tubman knowing that she had two husbands?
I don't know what I think about the two husband thing.
Mm-hmm.
No heat, no judgment. It was what it was,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'd like to see it in its full context.
Right.
The play.
Yeah.
To kind of get a better idea of like what was happening, what was going on. I would love to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very modern, so I think Gen Zers will totally love it. You know what I mean? But we think of, Harriet Tubman, and we think of this, matronly woman who, saved everybody. But what about her woman needs?
Well, that's why I said no judgment. You know what I mean? Like I'm just seeing it in its full context and what's happening, good, bad, or otherwise.
Yeah, I see her as a superhero, historic superhero. But to your point, she's a woman that had needs, and she had a husband, and she was in conflict with, do I stay with my husband or do I seek freedom? Because he was already free.
Right.
So,
right.
But she still had needs, and she went back and forth, right, to free people, and she went back to her man, but ultimately made a decision to leave. And so I think it's interesting for those who, let's say, people don't know about Harriet Tubman. Terrell created this play in order for people to really understand, I guess, a reimagined version of Harriet Tubman. Does it feel cringe a little bit? Because, like, you don't associate twerking with a historic
Harriet Tubman
figure
twerking.
like Harriet Tubman.
Back.
Right.
Where's my... You back.
But I think Terrell purposely wanted people to feel uncomfortable with it.
Yeah.
But I still watched the whole thing.
I was uncomfortable. I was judgmental when I first saw it.
Which is why I said, I'm glad you asked me the question first. I haven't even seen it, but no heat, no judgment. I want to see it in its
the whole thing.
Context to get an understanding. Every behavior serves a purpose.
Yeah.
Right. And so what was her purpose? What was happening? What was going on? What's the parts that we don't know?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But I think that's the brilliance of this play is like you come with expectations of how you want to see Harriet Tubman. And when she doesn't deliver who you want her to be, you're like, it's cringe. And I think that was the brilliance of
my reaction was a little different when I saw it. I just said, oh.
Okay.
Okay.
Like, were they really twerking back in her day?
They might not have called it twerking. That might not have been the name of what it was called. But I'm sure it's just like all the other things that we do, right? Like, it's just like, oh, you doing this dance. We was doing that 10 years ago. We was doing that back in the day, right? So again, we call it twerking today, but they may have been doing that back then, but not called twerking.
Okay.
Might be called something different.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Or some other variation of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Honestly, it really changed this play. I don't want to say this play changed me, but it really did. It made me question what I need other people to be so I can be all right about history.
And being comfortable and just having this conversation about it. I respect him being brave enough to put that into production and for it to get attention.
Yeah.
I mean, it got our attention, clearly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Back.
So
he's clearly marketing to a certain audience, though. I think he wants to invite people who maybe come from his own background to, embrace history and embrace it in a way that has not been told before, in a way that people of a certain demographic, certain community can relate to.
Yeah. And the takeaway is like you're learning something.
Yeah.
Historical. I don't know if it's 100% factual with her doing the twerking, but however, the historical piece is there.
Yeah.
The education. So I admire that.
And the full personhood of maybe not the full personhood, but this person goes from not being just this hero, this abstract hero, but to a person who overcame in the worst circumstances, who had this complex life.
Yeah. Just normalizing her. I think it's important. But respectful, I feel. Some may argue that it wasn't respectful, but who is anyone to judge? So I'm just curious if she has descendants and, did they have anything to say? But I couldn't find that. So, but
I think even, when we think about, like, I could sit here and say, I wish the production would have been higher quality. Like, I feel like there could have been more robust set, instead of a door frame, in most scenes. But I think that was also to kind of depict the minimalistic, things that, enslaved people had to go on. They were literally sleeping in bare bones. It was not an environment where you had the best of the best, even if that was the desire. Sometimes our desires were not given the privilege of being concealed because we were exposed in our vulnerability. And that to me is what I see when I saw the play, is that everything was kind of put on display, whether we liked or we was fighting with somebody or they didn't have the ability to hide their internal environment at all, because it was all put out there in display. Right. So I'm very conscious about how I critique this film, just because I understand that from the perspective of the enslaved, they didn't have the privilege of being able to keep their business behind closed doors.
All right, so in case you're wondering, the clean and chemical-free candles we only carry in our studio, they are from one of our proud sponsors, Modern Origins. When was the last time you truly paused? Not to scroll or plan, but just to breathe. At Modern Origins, they truly believe small rituals can make a big difference for your mind and your spirit. The handcrafted intention candles, bath soaks, and wax melts are made with clean ingredients, essential oils, and crystals designed to help you reconnect, release stress, and create moments of calm in your day. They're absolutely perfect for soaking in the bathtub after a trying day, having a quiet moment in meditation, journaling through a breakthrough, and even while watching our podcast. Modern Origins helps you turn self-care into something sacred. Visit modernoriginsus.com to build your ritual and get 15% off your first order with code CALM15. That's CALM 15. modernoriginsus.com, because your healing deserves intention. It's time to get real. We welcome Terrell Green.
Hello, everyone.
Yay!
Well, thank you for coming. And we had the pleasure of watching your play on YouTube, actually. And please give us a history. First of all, let's start with who you are, where you're from, for our audience members who are not familiar with who Terrell is. And we can start there. How about that?
Yes, my name is Terrell M. Green. I am originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I currently live in Los Angeles, California. I have a background in theater. I work in communications by day. And my undergrad degree is in theater from a school in New York City, Marymount Manhattan College.
Yes, Wayne Sanders was there. Do you know Wayne Sanders? Wayne Sanders? Okay, sorry. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm Sanders.
You taught voice, though.
Okay. I was in the theater side, so I didn't do any. Well, they keep us really separate. They kept us really separate. And then my master's in digital media management from USC Edinburgh. So those are really the intersections of my work: theater and technology, and finding content that brings potentially new audiences into theater. And that's really the focus of my work.
So tell us some of the initial inspiration behind this play.
I initially wanted to write a piece about on Harriet Tubman, generally, just a historical piece on Harriet Tubman. That's how I kind of went into it.
Okay.
And that came from my cousin sent me a viral TikTok trend that was going around that was dispelling Black historical figures. And this one was about Harriet Tubman not being real. That she was, they were saying that Harriet Tubman was made up, a conspiracy by the government, that she was multiple people. And that got me thinking, oh, I would really love to tell a story a la Hamilton around Harriet Tubman. And I was looking at this really big family piece at first. And I felt like it was just unmanageable for me to write as a writer. So in my research, one of the things that stuck out to me was that she was married twice. And so I was like, well, who's the first husband? And like Miss Tubman. And then it took me down this whole rabbit hole of information about her and John Tubman, him being free, never enslaved, and Harriet Tubman being born enslaved, and how historically, he constantly was not he was non-committal to their marriage. Well, their marriage wasn't even legally recognized, right? And so the thing that was most compelling about that story is that Harriet Tubman said, okay, well, I'll go north and I'll work. And she did for 2 years, and then she came back for him. And when she came back, he sent word that he had remarried. And he remarried a free woman. And to me, I was like, wow, even Harriet Tubman was trying to find love and pleasure even through the confinements of the institution of slavery.
Now that's
Right?
interesting.
And I saw this thread line of a powerful, strong Black woman in a really complicated relationship with someone that wasn't operating at the same power level that she was, but yet this was the person she chose to give her heart to. And for me, I had seen those sort of relationship dynamics in the Black women within my own family. And I was like, is this a residual effect of slavery within Black romance? And so that's where it got me to Harriet Tubman Love Slave.
Yeah, that's really excellent. Thank you for kind of illustrating those things. You bring up a really good personal subject. When you think about your own ancestry and the limitations by which Black women are allowed to love and the expression of their love in the spaces that they're not always understood, kind of forces us to kind of reckon with the assumed posture of what Black women are supposed to go through and endure in order to embrace love that actually accepts them.
That part.
And so in your play, I kind of felt as though the way this love story was illustrated kind of talks about two different parallels of love that liberates and love that enslaves. And how that resonated with me was in the redemptive contemplative freedom. While she was with him, she's, talking about how she's going to become free. He's free. He's experienced a reality that she's not privy to.
Right.
And she's aspirationally trying to get there with him. But he's not necessarily encouraging her to become free. He's almost boasting in the freedom he already experiences. She is in a space where she's trying to get there. But what does it mean to be a woman who may have been inspired by him, but him not be able to appreciate the inspiration he gave her? Right? That horizontal inspiration is, I'm free, but I can't imagine you being free, even though I love you. Right? So what does that mean that we as men can be a thing, but as soon as a woman becomes the thing that we, on the level that we are, or surpasses it, now they are not receiving the same level of affirmation that Black women pour into Black men, right? And so that's a double standard. And how do we confront those double standards? In the case of Harriet Tubman, she stood on business, and she used that as a mechanism to achieve her own freedom, and not only her own, but so many others. That was a guiding light for her redemption and the redemption of so many others, because she almost said, it might not have been dreamt for me. I had to dream it for myself. But now I'm going to give everybody else, I'm going to procreate the ideology that others deserve to be free, and ensure that the path is actually satisfied through through which the inspiration she received from God illustrated that to like her obedience. And this is what it looks like to be obedient in this redemptive and contemplative freedom. So there's layers to this if you really sit with it.
There's layers to it, but before she comes back and sings the back song, you know what I mean? She is willing though to be the love slave of this one. She won't be a slave to the system, but she's gonna be the slave to that man,
to her man.
Right.
What does it mean to be psychologically subdued in a space where he is willing to almost commodify in the way that she was commodified, but in a way that is consensual? Because at certain points of this film, it's like, okay, are we entering into like BDSM territory? Or are we, we're imagining what Black love looks like in a system of bondage, right? So we have to reimagine what it looks like to experience love in that space. And how does it serve like the purpose of Harriet's own sexual liberation and her own bodily autonomy?
But at the end of the day, she leaves her husband, right, for freedom.
Well,
but that serves her bodily autonomy because she didn't ask for permission. She just went. She's like, I'm going to do it. So she had already liberated herself. Exactly.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, sorry.
She already liberated her. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
This is so juicy. There's so many questions.
Well, clearly, Terrell, we clearly enjoyed the show. And
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Terrell,
it's amazing to hear people who kind of see
the vision,
a vision in it.
Yeah,
not me, but a vision.
I'll say.
Okay, and humanizing her, right?
Absolutely,
as a complex person, and there were definitely scenes where I felt a little uncomfortable, but I was like, I don't know, because I think of Harriet Tubman as like my grandmother, like
a dignified figure.
A figure,
right?
Like, wow, but she has sexual needs just like I do, and just like anybody else does. And
who thinks of their grandma like that, though?
Well, we have to think she was in her 20s, right?
Yeah.
So, but I appreciate, you reimagining it. And I think that's the theme for our season 2, like people reimagining history.
And I don't mean to cut you off, but what I'm really loving about Mr. Green's work is that it can get a little, you know what I'm saying, interesting and very modern, like Gen Z. I could see it very Gen Z, friendly. But the research is there. People are actually
learning something.
People are actually like Mr. Terrell Green made sure he's quoting actual quotes that he got from his research. And so it's a very it's a fascinating way too to do scholarship.
Absolutely. I mean, it's art.
Yeah, you definitely got our attention and a lot of people's attention with the story.
My career started teaching literacy in Black schools, and using art as the tool to teach that. And I saw the power. I would go into these schools where students could not read from grades K to 6. And we were going in and we were giving them the most powerful tool. Now let's mirror that, right? We had thousands of slaves who couldn't read, right? And the one tool you could give someone is knowledge, right? And I would see through art, students' lives change from the perspective of, oh, wow, not only am I seeing and understanding what's happening to me, I can say what's happening to me. And that's a pretty powerful thing, right? So when I began to write stories, it was from that lens of how can people who have something to say find a space where it can just be said, right? Because people would say to me, "This play is so ghetto," and I'm like, "Thank you." What are you saying to me? I'm from the ghetto. And fabulous, you know? And people would say to me, "This belongs on Tubi." I'm like, "Tell me how to get there." You're saying it to me like it's an insult, but when you glorify these aspects of Black culture, why is it so bad? You know, like, and that's the takeaway I had from it. Because the thing about it is, in addition to, you know, using art to teach people literacy, we would take these young Black people on trips and journeys to theaters or to art spaces, and they would be so excited to get there. We would do all this research. We would get there, and everyone would treat us like, "Why are you here?" Or we would get there and they're like, "We want to see the same stale play about the same person who don't look like me, and I gotta listen to them sing this operetta." No shade to opera.
I mean,
Don't Timothy Chalamet me, okay? So like, you know, they would feel like this doesn't relate to me. Right. So then when I began to teach these students playwriting and say, "You know what? Right now, put as many curse words as you want in it, and we'll edit it out later, but we just got to get your story out. Tell the story you want to tell it." And they would say, "Oh, I can speak the way that I want to speak, and people would still want to see it." That's a powerful thing, right? And like, so that is really, to me, I'm interested in telling stories for people, you know, that want to kiki about it around the table, right? Like people making theater accessible in a new way, right? And consumable in a new way. Because it just shouldn't be accessible to, like, John and Suzanne and, like, you know, the suburbs of New Jersey.
Not
You know,
John
like,
and
it's just
Suzanne.
We don't
you
have to
know?
censor
No
whiteness.
shade.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't. That's the thing, the decentering of the Eurocentric ideal.
Right.
Yes.
And I think, you know, as a former educator myself, it really does resonate with me. And I think they would have really connected with the idea that the language, the character, the ways of celebration would have definitely resonated with them, just because of the way they've been socialized, the environment that they grew up in, and how they saw themselves in the story of Harriet Tubman. It definitely is a keen audience in a certain place in their lives, for sure. I definitely know that they would have resonated, just because to be, you know, I think oftentimes we conform our ideology or our perception of a thing because this is socially acceptable, but this is not that, you know. And so in a space where this story is being told from such a modern lens, I think people who are used to consuming media in a way that is ratchet, in a way that is ghetto, are like edified in this. And there is a space for people to learn it and foster growth and development in the story, and just resonating, connecting. And this is something I think we'll continue to see with different historical figures, is that in order to be seen, to be truly seen, and like see themselves in the way art is distributed and displayed on a public stage, is to attach oneself to the things that our society celebrates, or not necessarily our society, meaning like white society, but Black culture celebrates.
Humanizing them.
Exactly.
Yeah. I am curious though. Okay, I'm not even gonna lie. It was like I was kind of jarred by. 'Cause I was, you know, you go in, you think you're watching a historical. It is historical. It was just not history the way I've been taught history, right? And so at first I'm like, what is going on here?
Clutching your pearls.
I am clutching my pearls, but then, you know, I start twerking a little bit. I'm like, oh, that's kind of bumpy. You know what I'm saying? I was like, oh, wait.
The pastor is twerking. Oh my God.
I was doing a little, I was driving, so I was doing a little, I was like, this is okay. But then, and then you forced me to think, because now I'm not expecting a certain way. Now my mind is open to whatever the experience is, because it's not being presented in a traditional lens. And so now I'm paying a different sort of attention to the story. But I'm wondering, like, how do you respond to the intergenerational conversation around your production?
Yes. I know one of the actors is like, my mom is like, can't you just take out like 10% of it? And I'm like, is your mom paying your bills? No.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, this play focuses on the first 27 years of Harriet Tubman's life, and 20 of them she's Araminta Ross, not even
Right.
Harriet Tubman.
That's right.
Um, that's like we'll just sit that in one bucket, right? And then the other side is, for the first 27 years of her life, she was enslaved. And so that meant she was denied pleasure. That meant she was denied body autonomy. That meant she literally was the property of someone else's. So there's like that too, right? And then there is like this thing where historically we don't know at all what Harriet Tubman sounds like, right? We've never heard her speak. Only thing we do know is that unfortunately she was illiterate. So I do feel as though with some of the exploration that we did, we were looking at someone who unfortunately maybe did not have a lot of vocabulary for the first 27 years of their life. So some of the language they would have used maybe would have not been so socially acceptable. And then
That's really important.
we really, really wanted to explore, like, when Massa ain't looking and Harriet could be a 20-something-year-old young woman with her husband, not some random man, like this is her husband.
That part.
I had some people who were pushing back like, oh, I thought she was just saying it to any man. I'm like, no, this was to her husband. So the intergenerational conversation is like, we're really trying to look at history from a lens of reclamation, right? Like even the scene where there's some BDSM reference, it's like, right, here's someone who literally took physical lashings, right, for being a slave. So now in her privacy with her man, they're going to play around and own that together. Right.
That's
and
good.
so I just really, in the pushback, experienced a lot of people uncomfortable with seeing these Black bodies experience pleasure on stage. And that's what it boiled down to me. And I wanted to intergenerationally say, when can we start discussing Black bodies as pleasurable beings publicly?
I mean, is it Black bodies for only historical figures? Because, I mean, look at the music and you go to a concert, and that's certainly like, look at Cardi B and, Megan Thee Stallion. Like, they're very over-sexualized.
Right.
That seems to be okay, but is the problem really with historical figures and seeing them in that light? Like, do we want to see Martin Luther King twerking and doing things with Coretta? Right? So is that where the issue lies, or is it just overall for Black bodies?
Well, so a lot of the argument was, well, I just could never see Harriet Tubman like this. And so I was like, okay, can you explain to me how you see Harriet Tubman? And it was like, well, I just see her as an old woman. And I'm like, I just feel like that's really unfair to someone who lived to be 96 in the 20th century.
My God.
Like, she had a whole ass life. I don't think it's fair to reduce this woman to, and then everyone's like, well, she freed all these slaves. Now, this isn't to discredit Harriet Tubman, but I just want to give a little accuracy here that she did 13 to 14 missions, freeing 70 to 80 slaves, all of whom were relatives of her. Because Harriet Tubman's main concern was keeping her family together.
Yes.
So people are like, she freed all these slaves, and it's like, she freed her family, and that became symbolic for the Underground Railroad, right? And that isn't to take away from her accomplishments, but that's to like, we flatten these icons, and then we don't learn our own history accurately. So then we say these bold statements that are actually hurtful.
Yeah.
You know? And so that's just my big thing. It's like, I think as a producer, I could have done more work to say, warning, you're about to see something crazy.
Yeah.
And people would have been like, oh, I'm seeing something crazy. This boy is crazy. I could have done that a lot better. And I think people maybe would have been a little bit more. Then when they kind of had to figure it out for themselves, they're like, whoa, where's this going? You know? So I think I could have had a little bit more conversations around that, because people who saw it live, I had many, many Black women walk up to me and share personal stories of how they connected to that piece and how they were actually appreciative to see Harriet Tubman almost as an ingenue character. And I have to respect history, but I think all history deserves multiple investigations.
Absolutely.
Because look at where we're at today.
Absolutely.
You know?
I wholeheartedly agree. I think the oversimplification of our narratives and our existence is a problem. And I think the overgeneralization of our narratives is an extreme problem.
Yeah, because we need Harriet Tubman to be a certain thing in our brain.
Yeah, like she has to be like the shining pillar, you know, the cross to freedom, you know. And that is, it's to our detriment. You know, I think another thing that this reminds us is that, you know, people are more complex. You know, and I totally agree wholeheartedly when you were saying that we flatten our, you know, our leaders and our figures. Martin Luther King, Dr. King was a more complex man than you realize. You know, so there was a lot of things going on in his time. And
you know,
yeah,
there was a play written by Katori Hall, called Mountaintop. Now it can be performed in the United States. When she wrote it, it was like
banned, right?
Yeah, because it's like in the first scene, Martin Luther King is flirting with a maid in and this is in the script, she's called a maid in a hotel, and people were like, "This is outrageous."
Yeah,
you know, like Martin Luther King is flirting with a woman.
Yep.
And it's Martin Luther King, and she literally had to go to England to get that play produced.
Wow. And it kind of highlights the deification of these historical figures too. You know, we deify them to make them you know, there's no possible way they could ever, you know, be human.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, I had someone say to me, you know, we have so many few Black pioneers, which I disagree with, but we have so many few Black pioneers that I just don't want to tarnish the image, of Harriet Tubman. And I'm just going to say something about, they call it Father Time, who waits for no one, right? The clock is moving. And what that means is, what I was impressed with was I had mentees come see the show, people who like don't care about history. I'm just gonna be frank. They're like, I don't know stuff. And they're like, Harriet Tubman had bars, yo. I didn't even realize that Harriet right. They're like, I didn't even realize Harriet Tubman withdrew that her love life. To me, that's all I needed.
Yeah.
Because they're the future of Black history.
Yeah.
Not me.
Yeah.
I am right now, but they are like, you know, like, and so I think that's where we gotta kind of remove our ego in the intergenerational conversations, right? Where it's like, you know, social media has really allowed us to personalize everything to the point where it's like, for the culture, sometimes we gotta step aside and say, I had an older Black gentleman say to me, I was uncomfortable for the first 25 minutes. I'm like, well, the play is only 55.
It's halfway. And
some of you young Black men is thank you for keeping Harriet's story alive. And I was like, respect. You know?
Yeah.
He was like, basically said to me, I ain't get all of it, but I respect what you're doing, and that's all it is for history to me right now, because who knows where our history will be.
Yeah.
Right.
I think this play reminds me that even because it kind of highlights the nuances of Harriet's story, anybody can make that difference.
That's good.
I think that's the biggest thing for me is people can recognize their own agency. No matter where you come from or how, subjected, dehumanized you are, you can be a Harriet Tubman. You can be a Dr. King. You can be someone who makes the difference. And we need people who are making differences in communities for people who are oppressed or subjugated. And you don't have to necessarily fit into a box.
You don't have to be
just
perfect.
have to be intentional, and be obedient to the thing that is drawing you to, a higher place. And I really appreciate how you kind of gave the backstory on like how she was hit with a rock and, she began having seizures that, in moments, since that moment, like she started to have communications with, the most higher power. And that, she embraced that as an opportunity to reimagine what her existence looked like. And then it birthed into, other people should be able to experience this too. Yeah.
If Harriet Tubman could watch your play, what would you hope her takeaway would be, or to, I guess, recognize your intention with it?
I thought about this actually a lot.
Okay.
I really have, and it guided me at some point. So I hope that Harry was like, finally somebody telling us about John Tubman. Okay, he's like, I know this, but that somebody needed to also mention because it was the other part about it is every man in Harriet Tubman's life told her no, stop. Like her father used to always tell her, you act too much like a man, like you need to chill, girl. Her brothers literally deserted her on the first attempt and went back and told on her, right?
Wow.
And so it was
The betrayal.
always the men in her life that was like, you can't do this. She went back and rescued each and every one of them still, right? And so
They
I
wanted
would
their
think
privilege.
that right, I feel like she would watch this and be like, thank you for elevating this other part of my story because it is such a crucial part of her story. The first 27 years of her life.
Yeah.
I was asking Krista, like, do we know of any descendants that are alive, or do you know?
Isn't it?
Yeah.
That's that's a really crazy to ask because I was in this deep research of like Harriet Tubman's estate. Like she must have one, and
Somebody.
I unfortunately they did a really good job of burying this information because I'm like, who is out there?
Somebody
Who's
has to
out
be.
there?
Like, I would love to hear their feedback.
Yeah,
on this.
totally.
Yeah.
Well, she didn't have any
Even
children. She has nieces and nephews, great nieces and nephews, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody's got to be related to her.
Yeah.
John
there
Tubman
definitely are.
John Tubman has two children, had two children. So I would even, because that's the other part, if we may just kind of talk about him a little bit, is like,
oh yeah, him.
The big thing with John that I walked away with is, well, working with the actor, it was like, put yourself in this man's shoes, right? Like you were never enslaved. You've only seen the true terrorism of what slavery is, witnessing it, right? Like seeing people be beat in front of you, murdered, whatever, in front of you. So of course you don't want to become a slave, right? So his whole thing was, if I go on this journey with you, all freed people had were papers to say you are free. And if those papers were damaged on the journey because you had to hop in a lake or whatever, you're no longer technically free, right? So he was literally, these are just the extraordinary choices and decisions Black people had to make around their life, right? Due to these circumstances, right? So I really wanted to explore, right, how John, even though free, truly had no emotional freedom and choice, right? Because he's like, I can't love you, right? He has a whole scene where he's like, he tells the audience how much he loves her, right? Then he literally can't tell her how much he loves her sexually and through her body. Yes, he can say that because that's acceptable, right? But to really explore why he loves this enslaved woman, it's too much for him, right? It's just not acceptable. But then he's going to if he had children with her, they would never be born free because freedom was passed through the mother,
Oh.
and so his children would have been born enslaved, and then also he just would have been risking his freedom. If you put yourself in his shoes, I guarantee you a lot of us we would have been very much like John Tubman in the resistance of going on the journey with her. Maybe not. I mean, the big thing was like, there was just one source that flat out said, like, there just had to be something about Harriet Tubman for him to love her because he could have had anyone. Statistically, there were more women free than men on the Eastern Shore.
Mhm.
So he was more like a sort of needle in a haystack to be a free man, right? So they say he could have had anyone, right? Like, but yet he chose to love an enslaved woman, right? So there had to be something about Eric Tubman, right? And so I really wanted to explore that about him, right? That like it was complex emotionally for him to say, I'm in love with this enslaved person, right? Or I'm willing to risk my freedom. These are the big decisions people had to make to be in love.
And to your point, when I was watching your play, the carcerality of it all, the systemic, like your love is imposed. There's a systemic factor that imposes itself on your love. That is godly. Right. That's God given.
Right. And it, to me, it's no different than trying to forge life under a system of mass incarceration, mass deportation, right? These systems, I was talking to a young person who is studying to be an attorney, and they're learning how to write memorandum for children who are in foster care now because their parents are deported. And just to hear that is like, dang, like these systems are on top of people of color's lives, right? Systemically. Then we have to turn around and do the most intimate thing with one another, love each other. How? And that's really what I wanted this play to kind of also open up, right? Like, how do we love each other when these systems have been teaching us to hate ourselves?
My God.
And teaching us we are the enemy.
My God.
The brainwashing of it all.
Yeah.
It's like classic love within oppression.
Yeah.
I love it. Right?
Yeah, it
What's
is.
part
Very
two?
smart.
Like, I'm excited for what's the next play going to be about?
So I can talk about it because it really happens.
Love and lockup, right?
It's looking at 16-year-old Sally Heming having 42-year-old Thomas Jefferson's baby in France.
Lord.
Wait. Rewind. Say that one more time. I missed that.
Lord.
Say that again.
16-year-old slave Sally Hemings having 42-year-old Thomas Jefferson's baby in France.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Well, she gets impregnated by him in France.
Right.
Wow.
And that is just layered.
I didn't know this.
I didn't know she was 16 years old.
Just
Wow.
the slate of that.
What people have said to me, it's a crazy sense of what I'm saying. People say to me, well, back then that was a little bit more acceptable. We gotta tell these stories, right?
We
because
we gotta tell the stories.
It's happening. Y'all are mad, but it's happening. Like people are mad that it's being pointed out, but it's like, no, like it's literally in front of us currently today, right? So it's like when I saw that, it's so much layered there around the Sally Hemings story, right? Like, but when I really understood that she was 16 and she gets impregnated with him on a special trip in Paris, and she has to make the decision because she was technically free in Paris, right? Because slavery was not recognized legally there, and she said she made a choice at 16. I'm going to go back to America and have this baby, but if I have any more children, you have to make sure they're free. Again, another big decision for a young person to have to make. But due to the circumstances that Black people were put under in this country, these are the decisions that she had to make at 16, right? Like, so really kind of exploring that, right? Like that this predatory nature has just been around forever.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Yes.
I love it.
Yeah, that's going to be quite the storytelling. I mean, it's a lot to even comprehend the promise of freedom externally, you know, and then to be re-enslaved when you return. You know, that in and of itself, pregnant or not, to say I'm going to go back with this person and allow him to enslave me, and it's just
okay.
Here's the crazy part about Thomas Jefferson. He was, you know, father of the American Revolution. He freed America, right? So he goes to France to teach the French revolutionists his freedom ways, right? And he goes, well, I must bring a slave with me, right? Because
surely,
yeah. Okay. So he sneaks Sally and her brother over, and he writes a letter to Andrew Jackson. He's like, if these French people find out I got a slave here, they're gonna call me a fraud. What should I do? Andrew's like, oh, pay her a little sum for a few months while she's there. So he decides to pay her a small fee and make her an indentured servant. But they're like, please, whatever you do, don't tell her and her brother that she's technically free.
So even the awareness of, you know, was she even aware of her freedom? You know?
So she's fine. So she actually reveals to him when they start their affair, I know I'm free.
Yes, indeed.
You know, and he's like, well, what do you want to do? And she's like, well, I don't speak the language here. My entire family's back in Virginia, and now I'm pregnant. So I think I need to go back. And I'm
that's like, the complexity of it all.
You know, like this is the richness of history that people need to understand.
Absolutely.
These dynamics are still the residualness of these dynamics are, you know, I hear my mom, she works in healthcare administration, and the story she tells me, I'm like, that's the residual effect of salary memories, girl.
Yeah.
Like what you're going through right now. It's crazy, you know? So these stories disrupting, they need to be told.
If I may ask,
be me.
Do you feel like do you intend to tell the story with the same approach as you did with Harriet Tubman?
I do. I am looking to explore sort of a rap country and really leaning into I'm like, wherever Beyonce goes, I'll go. Okay. If she goes country, I'm the country musical.
What about opera? Right? You mentioned opera earlier.
That's the goal. Yeah. We need that's my life's goal. The opera.
On a personal note, I usually ask this to most of our guests. Where you people from?
Where my people from? So that's a great question. So my father's family is from Mississippi and made their way to Philadelphia. My grandfather was a preacher and my great-great-grandfather was a preacher and a boxer and made his way to Philadelphia. And and then my mother's side, on both her mother and father, they're from Virginia. And they all made their way to Philadelphia in the 1920s.
Wow. Do you know what part of Mississippi your grandfather was from?
I believe Biloxi.
Okay, Harrison County.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I am the only living male of a generation, right? Like all the men who raised me are gone, unfortunately.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Yes, and I pay homage to them by digging deeper into their history and finding out who they were and knowing who raised them, because they were so disconnected from their history. So
definitely let's connect.
You mentioned your great grandfather was a preacher and a boxer. which is
Yeah.
awesome. I love that. Which denomination was? I'm wondering if there's some AME happening there, or Baptist, or do you know this?
So yes, my father's family had been mostly Baptist. My mother's family had been mostly Catholic.
Ooh,
And
interesting.
then I was raised Pentecostal.
Okay.
You know, that's very, very, very interesting because my mother's direct ancestors were enslaved by the Jesuits of the Catholic Church on the Eastern Shore in Maryland. It came out of Maryland and Virginia. So the fact that you mentioned that they were Catholic is also striking to me because I'm the director of the genetic genealogy program for the Jesuits. So I'm curious where that started, right? My ancestors were enslaved Catholic as well in Louisiana. So we definitely have to connect.
Yes, and my mother's family's surname is McConnell.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know.
That's
We
Irish.
don't know where that came from, you know? Like, but yeah.
Wow. Okay. Very good. Wow. So many things to connect on.
Absolutely.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. All right. So you say you were raised Pentecostal. What is your spiritual belief, or what does spirituality mean for you? Curious.
Yeah. You know, God has proven himself, not that he has to, but God has proven himself to be real to me many, many times. Like I personally have had a lot of supernatural experiences. One of which being I've been sober for 6 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh
Thank
my
you. And
God.
so that to me, if you knew me then and knew me now, that's supernatural.
My
Okay.
God.
Well,
Yes. And so that and I've just seen the signs and wonders, right? That has said, honestly, like this play being one of them. This play came to me very clearly, like from start to finish. Like I sat down at a computer and was like, do signs and wonders, right? And it has helped me connect with so many people. So my connection, I can be frank and say that I have had a lot of hurtful situations in the actual physical building of a church.
Got it.
Wow.
Yeah. I understand.
However, like God and what God has done for me in my life supersedes all of what people can do.
Yep.
You know, and I wish that for a lot of people because I think the peace that I have in my life, the world did not give it to me. The world cannot take it away.
Hallelujah. Yes, sir. Yes,
And
yes.
it's tried and it's true, you know. And so I really, and like even going through this experience with Harriet Tubman Love Slave, it was just like, thank you, God. You know, you're always working.
Okay.
Such a that mysterious way. Like, thank you, God, right? But yeah, God is real, you know, and also I live in California where it's like, I'm from the city, right? But I live in California where it's like I see these crazy physical structures, these mountains, these sunsets, and I'm like, you can't deny
Surely there must
there
be a
isn't a
God.
higher power doing that. What did you say?
I said, surely there must be a God.
You know, like look
Yeah.
at this hand painted sunset. You know,
Right.
so
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. How can people find you online? Like, how can people get more information about you?
Yeah, when's the next
Yes.
production? All that.
Yes, so great question. So they can find me online. They can either visit my website at tgreen267.com. And once you're there, you can choose your own destiny of what you want to look at. And I'm also on Instagram at TEE Guru Green. And the next production. So I really am interested in expanding how I'm all about accessibility, right? And like making this art form accessible. And so I've been working with a podcast producer to start audio theater, trying to look at how we can expand a genre. And yes, so how folks would, you know, download a book and do an audio book, we're trying to get that to be a play. And then also exploring out of that, we're working on that this summer to be released in August, September, maybe possibly around like Labor Day. I feel like charade, spring, summer. Joggers.
Yeah.
No, but definitely September. And then the other thing is looking at bringing theater to verticals, so the vertical platforms of TikTok and YouTube Shorts, right? I want theaters in people's hands, like I really want people to be able to say, I can create from wherever I am at. Like that's the power of digital, right? Really getting Black and brown folks inspired to tell their stories, to mark the IP now. Like that's really what I'm focused on, and using theater as the medium. And so those are my next two projects, and I'm always looking for opportunities to produce Harriet Tubman Love Slaves.
Wishing you much success, and I know you're going to continue to make huge impact, man. Just be obedient to the assignment which you've been called, and I know that whoever is supposed to reach it'll touch.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Amen.
All right.
Yeah.
God bless you.
God bless y'all.